I am Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. Today was the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. This morning, as we have done every anniversary since 9/11 itself, at Fire Station 1, we held a memorial service, a memorial ceremony. And I have only missed one of those since I was elected to council, and ironically, I was on a plane at the time. But the mayor read a proclamation this morning, which he read from again at tonight's meeting. So at tonight's meeting, we covered several things. During the preliminary open meeting, we had a review of the noise ordinance. Updates are being proposed to make sure that construction that falls in and around residential areas is not conducted at night without due process. We also had a robust discussion about the street design standards update. Now this took up the most airtime of the meeting because even though we reviewed it in preliminary open meeting, we had several agenda items which were all wrapped together in the street design standards. Now, these encompass the entire city. We're updating the street design standards, which are very old, to provide some consistency, but particularly in the downtown Plano area, which was kind of piecemealed over many decades. There were concerns by a number of business owners in downtown Plano about the updates, many of which would be narrowing the streets in downtown, taking it in some places from 2 lanes to 1 lane each way. Now, staff has put an incredible amount of work into this, and the way they were able to show us that by funneling traffic this way and that, by narrowing to 1 lane and making sure that others could gracefully turn without not realizing that their lane was ending and then getting stuck there, would actually alleviate many traffic concerns in Plano. However, the concerns abound. And even if the only reason for the concern is that we could do more in our outreach to assuage downtown business owners of the issue, we had a robust discussion about this. And when we came to the items on the agenda to actually vote for, we passed the street design standards with the exception of any modifications to the lanes in downtown Plano, pending a 6-month physical study, not just a model or an analysis, but a 6-month physical study to simulate basically a mock-up of what we're proposing to do to the lanes, simulated in conditions that would reflect the real traffic patterns if we were to go through all this construction. And the way I likened it was, I saw this as, it'd take some work, it'd take a little bit of investment, but it would be investing a fraction of the cost to build a prototype before we run through with the finished product. And I also said that it was important to me to conduct this holistically, not just 1 lane at a time, because when people encounter construction, road closures, etc., they alter their driving behaviors. And for a while, they'll take the next parallel street. The point I raised in the meeting was, I currently don't drive on Parker. I don't take Parker at all because I've been burned too many times in the past month driving on Parker and getting stuck because of the construction. So I jump on Park, or I jump on Spring Creek, depending on where I'm going. But if we're proposing work to Parker and Park and Spring Creek, then we need to simulate those. It's not actually on Parker and Park and Spring Creek, it's all in downtown Plano, but you got the idea. We need to evaluate that impact simulated holistically to where we make the changes, we simulate the changes to all 3 roads simultaneously. Because once I get the impression that these lanes are shut down, then my new normal driving behaviors will tell the real tale. So city staff is going to devise a physical study to simulate this environment in downtown Plano for 6 months, after which they'll analyze the findings, and we'll be taking the pulse of business owners in downtown Plano during this time. I mean, if things go really south, then we can pull the plug at any time. But we want to get a good sampling. As city manager said, we want to understand during during school outages, during holidays. I shouldn't say school outages. I mean, although Plano West did have an outage recently. HVAC didn't work, 2 days of school off. But during school vacations and during the holidays and all sorts of conditions to make sure that we're getting a good thorough test. And likewise, even though we can't simulate the traffic from the future state of the Collin Creek redevelopment or the new Fries redevelopment that was recently approved, we can pay careful attention to the traffic where we think will be increased based on those developments when they come online, and see how that's doing. If they're just skating by under the simulation, then when we add all of that traffic from Collin Creek and Fries, we can expect that the areas that are just skating by aren't going to be doing so well. So anyway, long story short, we passed the street design standards update, but we restricted any changes to the lanes, any real permanent changes to the lanes and flow of downtown Plano streets until the results of the study. And maybe that'll mean that everything that we thought was going to happen happens. Maybe it'll mean there are some changes that we want to make to the plans. Maybe it'll mean we just leave everything alone and don't mess with the lanes. So we did have, like I said, the 9/11 proclamation. We had a proclamation that September is Emergency Preparedness Month. And we had a proclamation that September 21st through 24th is the HEB Central Market Plano Balloon Festival. So I will be there on Saturday. Please come see me and come see the Balloon Festival. It is our largest event in the city of Plano, although our new Texas Forever Fest has been growing by leaps and bounds each year. So Balloon Festival might have a run for its money soon. We also had a presentation to honor the 2022-2023 graduates of the Plano Citizens Academy. I think they said this was the 10th class. I went through the Plano Citizens Government Academy before the program was revamped to the Plano Citizens Academy. So congratulations to all the graduates of this program who were honored tonight. Now, also in tonight's meeting, I voted for a tax increase. That might come as a surprise to some who have been unplugged, but it shouldn't come as a surprise to others whom I've spoken to, for whom I've spoken about extensively. Not for whom I have spoken about extensively, who have seen that I have spoken about this extensively. There we go. In recent past, and I wrote an article about it, which appeared in the Plano Citizens Coalition newsletter last week. And I also published that on my blog. So just go to my website, shelbyhwilliams.com, shelbyhwilliams.com. Go to my blog. It's the City of Plano 2023-24 budget and tax rate. So in over 2,200 words, I laid out why I supported this. And the long and the short of it is that we have passed the first property tax increase in Plano in 5 years. So for the past 4 years in a row, we have adopted the no new revenue rate, which is keeping aggregate property taxes flat across the entire city for properties taxed in both years. So we have a tax increase finally, which is a little bit of a jump for a variety of reasons, which I outlined in my article. Please go read that if you're curious. Single-family homeowners who have a homestead exemption, you're going to see in aggregate, or on average, I should say, about a 10% tax increase. Now, this sounds like a lot, but again, this is 10% over a 5-year period. Inflation, as I'm sure you are painfully aware, in the same time period has been twice that. So while it sounds like a lot, it's the first tax increase in several years. But also some other things that I said at the meeting are important to understand. First, almost $4 million have been unilaterally taken off of the tax rolls by the Plano Housing Authority. This was due to a loophole in state law, which has since been plugged, but those $4 million are gone. That means it's you, the taxpayer, who is on the hook to make up for that. Otherwise, we cut commensurate city services. But this is after we've spent the past 4 years driving a leaner and leaner organization. So that's half the difference in the tax rate we were talking about. Something that's very important to understand, and which I cover in my Property Tax 101 seminar every year after valuations come out in May. Plano has the lowest tax rate out of any major North Texas city. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, because while we have the lowest tax rate, we have amongst the highest property values. It's just a multiplier. The tax rate times the property value yields the amount of taxes you pay. And we're about the middle of the road there. And that's important to understand, because our purpose isn't to have the lowest tax rate or even the lowest taxes or the highest spending or the lowest spending. It's to offer the best value to our taxpayers. And we do. We offer the best value out of any major North Texas city to our taxpayers. We have earned the title, the City of Excellence, but it's incumbent upon us to keep Plano the City of Excellence that everybody moved here for to begin with, or chose to remain here for to begin with. And the reality is that we are facing stiffer competition for talent and residents and businesses from other North Texas cities than we have in the past. And we have not necessarily kept up with our competitiveness. For these reasons, we have finally enacted the first property tax increase in 5 years, because overwhelmingly, the thing that makes us the City of Excellence is our people and our city staff that drives excellent city services. We have not been as competitive in attracting and retaining top talent amongst our staff as we should have been for the past several years. We still have more to do to make up in that regard. But when we talked about the difference in the proposed tax rates, what was important to me is that we put the balance of the difference toward a compensation fund for our people. Now, understand that the entire city budget is not just the taxed portion. You're also going to, unfortunately, see a solid waste increase. Our costs are going up from the North Texas Municipal Water District for water and sewer, as well as solid waste. And I had originally contemplated, well, to offset the solid waste increase, could we subsidize that with taxes? Councilman Riccadelli pointed out to me that that would kind of bear it, even though it would help offset things from a taxation standpoint, or at least from a solid waste fee standpoint. They are going up significantly. That would kind of bury the situation. And since the North Texas Municipal Water District is driving the price increase, even though nobody recognizes that except for people watching this video, they're going to blame us anyway. It's still on the North Texas Municipal Water District, and we have to drive cost savings there as well, and fiscal responsibility there as well through our board memberships. But all that to say, he convinced me pretty quickly that that would be the wrong avenue to take. But we still need to cover the city services that we have, and we need to contend with the municipal cost index, which is the inflation factor that cities see and is even higher than the inflation which we as residents and consumers have been pummeled with. However, so we need to make sure we are competitive and we attract and retain top talent. All this to say, with the 20-year analysis that I performed on the property tax roller coaster that I wrote about in my article, The Budget and Property Tax Roller Coaster, I believe we have now achieved equilibrium. Over a 20-year period, we are now philosophically where we need to be. And I want not to increase taxes, or at least bank an increment against the past 3 years. Read my article for more on that. Next year, there are a couple of things in the offing which we can't truly count on, but which seem likely. One is the DART surplus rebate. Now, we're only getting reimbursed for infrastructure, transit-related infrastructure projects that we are paying for now. After the fact, we submit those for reimbursement to DART, and if they approve, they reimburse us. That's why we can't necessarily count on getting all that money, but we're going through that as fast as we can. And these were all things that were in our pipeline to do anyway. And the second is the sales tax surplus. The sales tax reports mid-year every year For the past many years, we have seen better sales tax returns than we planned for at the beginning of the year. But again, I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch. And so those may come through, they may not. If they do, I want to not only sock away money in our rainy day fund, our new rainy day fund, but I want to use that money to offset any proposed tax increases next year. And it's really, really important to me that we adopt a philosophical model or a philosophical principle now, this fiscal year, that guides our budget and tax process in future years. I wrote about that in my article too, so how's that for a bunch of teasers? Please go check that out. We then adopted the new city budget of $729 million. We then passed the CIP, Community Investment Program, of $342 million. Those are basically capital expenditures. We then adopted the classifications and compensation for the 2023-24 fiscal year for both civil service members of police and fire. And then we had the big street design standards discussion. The EDS campus rezoning was on the agenda tonight, but the applicant requested that it be tabled. It's been tabled to the second meeting in October. And then finally, we had a blip of a consideration for a specific use permit, that's an SUP, for a daycare so at Reclamation Church near Alma and Thunderbird Lane. So an SUP is where something is permitted only with special permission. They applied to have a daycare at the church, and that was approved unanimously. So with that, I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. Thank you, good night, and God bless.